United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you call roll.
Gutenkopf. Here. Deuter. Here. Dunn. Absent. Leader. Leader.
Oh, here.
Okay, that's a here. Polumsky. Here. Graham.
Here.
Hipskin. Absent. York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Honquist.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner. Absent. Did I leave someone out?
Here.
Wagner?
Wagner. I knew I left someone out. I knew that.
Here.
Thank you, Alderman. 11 present, 3 absent.
11 present, 3 absent. We have a quorum. On to agenda item number 2, public hearing. This is a public hearing for the 2014 budget. There's a public hearing scheduled for this evening. The public hearing concerns the city's tentative annual budget for 2014. I call the public hearing to order and ask that the city clerk please call the roll.
Gutenkopf. Here. Deuter. Here. Dunn. Absent. Leader.
Here.
Polumsky. Here. Graham.
Here.
Hipskin. Here. Okay, good. 35. York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Honquist.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner. Absent. Wagner.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. The purpose of this public hearing is to take public comment concerning the city's tentative annual budget for 2014. I would ask that the clerk read any written comments concerning this matter into the record.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any written comments for this matter.
Okay, very good. I would ask Clerk Spencer to please call on anyone who has signed up to speak during the public hearing.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
You have 2 separate sheets? You have 2 separate sheets?
You mean all these?
My name is Claude Pogich, 566 West Gladys. In regards to the budget, and before I start in there, I'd like to thank Mr. Healy and Mr. Bram for the 2 answers to questions I asked in the past. I thank both of you gentlemen. According to the paper, which this city was kind enough to have published, the anticipated budget you gentlemen are talking about will be about $143 million. I'm going to bring up something that has a bearing on that $143 million. And all the people that came up here, whatever group, library, fire department, and all the discussion, they are all worthwhile entities. They all did something for the city, but they all needed more money. Now, one alderman said, you know, last year your budget was $8 million. Why do you need $9.5 million this year? Oh, we got to buy some books. We got to get some fire hose. But now it comes down to what the total budget is. $142 million, almost $143. And you know, none of them can do without. But I started thinking about it the other night, and I said, you know, it's $142 million for the city. And all the other entities I'm going to talk about, you have no bearing on. School board wants $100 million plus. Park district, they'll go for about 20, 30, whatever. DuPage County, oh, they'll probably come up with another 200 million, maybe more. College of DuPage, another 100 million. So all these entities, they can't do it out either. So totally, before the citizens of this town have a nickel to spend themselves, they got to come up with $500 million. See, because they can do without. But none of you on this group said, hey, wait a second. You have to have it. And everybody agrees, nice statements and everything else. But nobody wants to say, this is the total public that you're going to have to pay out. You're going to have to come up with $142 million for the city. Just got to. And then you got those general obligation bonds. See, that's like a credit card for the city. You want the $142 million, but you don't have enough. It's like everybody in this room, we all have credit cards. We all go out and buy things, and we say we need them when we see them. And we run that credit bill up. And then we put them on the side, we forget they're there, and then sometimes we just wonder why the hell we went and bought them. But the credit card company doesn't forget it. They send you a bill, just like the people that bought all those general obligation bonds. $7 million worth has got to be come up with to pay those off. And every one of those general obligation bonds was necessary, in the opinion of the councils. Not just this one, the councils before, the mayors before. But you see, the bill still has to be paid. But you want 142, plus you want the credit card. And everything you do when you don't have money, the general obligation bond. But the public sitting here never heard any council member ask any group that showed up, what was your budget last year? Okay. And then after this meeting, and after you voted in, and they all need it, you're going to come up with everything we need, but you don't have the money, and you're going to use that credit card again. Unfortunately, that credit card you're using right now goes to 2035. When it's 2050, 2060, then what do? All I'm asking this council to do is like anybody that has a household. You can't just keep on going and using a credit card. And you can't just keep on saying everybody needs it. Because there's a lot of things these people in this room need. One of them is they want to stop buying mops and they want to stop buying pumps, and they would like the flooding issue really addressed. But we're hop-skipping around this thing and hoping somehow it's going to go away. It's not going to go away. And that money you're spending now, that you really have to spend, that nobody can do without less, we do have those general obligation bonds. And we just keep on spending it. We just keep on using that credit card. And one day, that $500 million that's going to be stripped out by elected officials who cannot do without less and are all doing it for the benefit of the community are going to find they have stripped the community of everything it has. But the reality is, when the elected officials are gone, the community is stuck with what they did. All for their benefit. So when is that reality going to set in? On top of it, gentlemen and ladies, you are part of the community. So when are you going to stop saying, yeah, it's okay? Your budget can be increased. Let's buy another $6 million worth of general obligation bonds. Because we need it. Town can't do without it. Because if you don't come to that realization, the very people you represent and the very people you're doing things for, they won't be able to pay for it anymore. And if you don't realize that now, the aldermen that sit up there after you, and the mayors that sit up there after there, and all the mayors that are hanging on the wall, the only thing they hoped was that it could be done. But as in my household, there are things I need, and there are things I want. And until this council decides what is needed and not what they want, maybe the community will be better for it.
Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline.
Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline. So I got my invitation to the budget hearing in the newspaper. Here it is. It's kind of small print even for me to read. It's getting harder for me to read this stuff. I've been listening to council meetings for a really long time. I've missed 2 meetings in about 4 years now. And I never heard mention in any of the updates from city officials, elected officials, or city staff when this budget hearing was going to take place. I found it in the newspaper by chance, flipping through the back pages. So I don't know, maybe me and Claude would be the only ones testifying even if people did know about it, but it was hard to know about. Anyway, when I was looking at the budget paperwork, one thing I came across at the top is the city organizational chart, which I'm sure y'all can't see, but it's got in the top box, under the city of Elmhurst, residents. Residents are in the top box, and that's what the mayor and the city council are supposed to respond to. Last 2 weeks ago at the last council meeting, I was pretty disappointed to hear from a couple of aldermen, one of whom pretty much dismissed a group of 227 residents that expressed their opinion on a subject. And another alderman was talking about roadblocks being put up for developers. I don't see where private interests of developers are what the mayor and city council are supposed to be looking out for on this organizational chart. So I'd like the priorities of the city council to reflect that chart, which says residents are their top priority, it seems. I heard the city manager talk about a new marketing and communications position at his opening statements for the budget hearings. He said that they've listened and found out that timely and accurate communication to the public and disseminating information in the most effective and efficient manner is a high priority. I agree, those things are high priorities. I'm just not sure that making a new marketing position is the way to solve the issue of timely and accurate communication. It seems like that's a culture of leadership issue more than anything. If the leadership was interested, they could do it with the resources they have. Maybe there's a communications piece to this. It's marketing and communications coordinator. I don't know which thing is more prominent. I read the report that's on tonight's agenda for the regular meeting. It's also in the budget about this new position, which hasn't been discussed for long. But the report from the DP&Z committee talks a lot about marketing strategies, assisting in global marketing. And I'm not sure why the city needs yet another person to do marketing strategies. The flow chart for what this position is going to be doing shows, that's what this paper is here, it shows a box of 4 positions. They're all talking to one another. You've got 3 consultants, and now this new position, and they all have arrows going from one to the other, so they're all going to be talking amongst themselves. This new position is supposed to take some of the jobs of the consultants, but there's nothing in the report from the DPZ committee or anything which says how the consultants' positions are going to change. Are we going to be paying less to consultants? Are they going to be doing less? how much are we going to be paying for this new position? I didn't see that anywhere in the paperwork so far. And this new position, it looks like from some of the duties, is going to generate additional costs because of new initiatives that they're going to be told to do. And I'm curious also what's going to happen with the part-time visitors and tourism person whose job, I guess, is going to be eliminated in part to create this new job. Is that person going to move into the new job, or is that person going to be let go and another person brought in? Those are things I'm curious about in terms of the marketing and communications position, which I don't think we need. Regarding the IT part of the budget, I know people are very enamored with electronic message signs and things. In fact, there's going to be a public hearing about that at the Zoning Commission a week from Thursday. I don't know why we need to have an electronic message sign on the Palmer Drive underpass, actually, for $100,000. It seems newfangled and everything, but I don't want to be advertised to there. I'm happy to see the announcements for public events and things that are going on, but with an electronic message thing, you're going to have opportunity for all kinds of other stuff, and I don't want to see advertisements flashing there. I'm not sure that that's a really necessary expense, but it's in the budget. Oh, another thing in the budget is closed-circuit TV security system for the Addison Deck Development Project. Is that going to be in all the garages or just in Addison Street? And I'm not sure that that's going to make people feel safer going to the Addison Street garage, but that's in the budget too. Lastly, the Prairie Path underpass. That's still in the budget. You've got $150,000 that you're wanting to spend this year for some preliminary engineering work. I think that Prairie Path underpass should just go away completely, and you should look for some more cost-effective mechanisms to help people cross the street on York. There's a lot of other places where the Prairie Path crosses the road, and we can't be putting tunnels under all of them, and we don't need to be putting a tunnel under this one. Thanks.
Last I have Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine Street.
Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine Street. Good evening. With regards to the budget, I think that it's light on money going to fix stormwater issues in Elmhurst, Illinois, specifically with the stormwater sewers. I think that a lot of things that were pointed out by others, specifically Tamara, that she mentioned just since I got here, $100,000 for a sign over the overpass, $150,000 for the engineering. That's $250,000. That's a quarter of fixing the problem in my neighborhood under the current pricing that we've been given. It's greater than the first amount that was given to fix the problems in my neighborhood 4 years ago. So I don't think those are necessary costs, and I think you need to cut some things out of this because there are some things that are unnecessary. I don't think there's any need to spend money on marketing when you don't meet the basic needs of the residents. Food, water, shelter, clothing. You pour water into our houses and you use our house as a storage basin for your water. And you're not paying us. And so giving money to people to market something that doesn't need to be marketed until you fix the problem, that'll go a whole long way towards marketing your town. Thanks.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. At this time, is there any member of the audience who did not have an opportunity to sign in on this spreadsheet? I see at least one hand. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak at this time and did not have an opportunity to sign in? Okay. Please approach the microphone over there, identify yourself, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Hello, my name is Eileen Hassett. I am a new resident of Elmhurst. I just graduated from the University of Notre Dame, and I came from Oregon, so that's where my sort of background is. But I have to say, with everything that's going on in the United States today and sort of what's going on with healthcare, I am sort of surprised that there was not more pushing on lowering the budget, on cutting the budget. There are going to be regular families who are going to be struggling, and raising of property taxes and other taxes throughout the city will not help them. So I wish that there was a little bit more pushing back on what was actually needed. I also think that there should be more of a more efforts to actually help families reduce their own costs instead of sort of having one streamlined system that everyone goes through in terms of water, how they water their plants, if they can cut down in any way. I think that there should be more options that are open to the public in order to help different families from different backgrounds who might not be able to just make ends meet. So I hope in the future we see more people trying to cut back on budgets, because it's going to get harder and harder for regular people, especially people with families. So thank you.
Could we get her address? Ma'am, could you please state your address for the record, please?
841 North York.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience who did not have an opportunity to sign up for for the public hearing this evening? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Hipskin. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed? That motion carries. We are adjourned. Public hearing is adjourned. Regular meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. Written receipts of communications from the public. At this time, is there anybody who would like to submit any written receipt or documents to the City Council? If so, I'd ask that you approach Clerk Spencer.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else with any written communications for submission? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public forum portion. Agenda item number 4. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the City Council. We ask that you take 3 minutes, direct your comments to the City Council. Clerk Spencer, do we have anybody who has signed up this evening for public forum?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Andrea Alvarez, 182 North York. Did I pronounce that right?
Good evening. My name is Andrea Alvarez, and I'm with the Citizen Advocacy Center here in Elmhurst. And I look forward to continuing the center's legacy of promoting open government and working in and with Elmhurst for the best results to promote democracy in the coming years. I'd like to address an issue on the agenda tonight. The City Council is considering the appointment of former Alderman Susan Rose to the Zoning and Planning Commission. Former Alderman Rose has a wealth of experience with a variety of issues that are facing Elmhurst, specifically the Zoning and Planning Commission. She has participated as an alderman in open meetings and closed meetings and voted on city projects that are still pending and will be before the Zoning and Planning Commission. For example, the Addison Street parking garage will be before the Zoning and Planning Commission, and Mrs. Rose has participated as an alderman in open meetings and voted on this issue. Well, Ms. Rose's knowledge and experience as an alderman are exactly what make her a strong candidate for this position. It also has this particular knowledge and experience that's going to bring questions of conflict. Zoning and Planning Commission are charged with assessing the facts without bias, making a recommendation to the city. These conflicts of interest that necessitate a policy for recusal include prior knowledge, prior voting, and prior involvement on the part of the commission exists. I urge City Council to refrain from approving any appointments until a firm policy is finalized for recusal. Standards for recusal are necessary because it is not always easy to identify when one's interests may conflict with the role one plays. The Citizen Advocacy Center recommends that the City Council adopt a standard for recusal based on frequency, recency, relevancy, directness, and the amount of benefits the person's involvement with the current issue. For example, the current chairperson of the Zoning and Planning Commission is also a member of the hospital board. He recuses himself of any discussions concerning the hospital. We would recommend that this standard of complete recusal becomes formal policy for Elmhurst. That is, when a matter comes before an individual on a commission that he or she has already been involved with, the individual recuse him or herself. We recommend adopting this policy before the appointment of any person, and this issue becomes a matter of public concern and a greater problem in the future. Let's be proactive and set the policy for recusal now. Thank you.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys. Development and planning is having discussions about how much a lot is covered. It's a little late in the day to start worrying about how much a lot is covered. It's already there. You're not going to send in bulldozers and backhoes. You're not responsible. Other aldermen, other mayor. But they're discussing it. Unfortunately, the county is also discussing it. And they're going to have a fee. So whatever they come up with, the county will get them all straightened out and we'll wind up paying. Edison parking garage, long discussion. 55, 65, 40, stores, no stores. And we're sending it off to zoning and planning, is it? And we already know what the price is. That means somebody's got a set of drawings for 65 feet, 55 feet, and 40-some feet. Yes, no, what are you going to present to them? You don't know what you want. It was admitted at the meeting. Even Mr. Levin threw in a towel and said, heck with it, we'll go 65. Healy says, what are we actually billing, 40, 60, what? What are they going to decide on? They've already decided. Well, we're going back there. Sure we are. What are we going to get from them? Then you guys are going to come up with something, and then it's going to have to go back. Is there a set of drawings? Maybe, huh? Oh, yeah, and I've asked this before. Never got an answer. But the city, again, was very kind. Treasurer, too. City collected $9.6 million for water last year. Unfortunately, they only paid DuPage County Water Commission $4.6 million. I paid $9.6 million to the city, and they only paid $4.6 million to DuPage Water Commission. Wonder why. Understand that's going to go up in this new budget. Somewhere around $11 million. Wonder what you guys are going to pay to DuPage Water Commission. And do you realize we paid $9.6 million for water, and after the public used it, they only had to pay $6.3 million to clean it up. So I'm asking again, why $9.6 million for water when you only paid $4.6?
Mr. Pagash, you're at 3 minutes. I'd ask you if you'd wrap it up.
And why is the school and the Park District paying almost $1 more per meter?
Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline Avenue.
Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline. I also want to express my concern regarding number 6.4 on the consent agenda, which is the appointment of a former political office holder to the Zoning and Planning Commission, which should be an apolitical, non-political board. I'm concerned because there are a variety of political topics. A lot of things are getting politicized because of the items that the city is involved in. These include not only Addison and Hahn Street, but also the issue of electronic signs. Again, that's coming before the Zoning Commission next week. I think it's a bad precedent to set. You guys are supposed to be looking for doing best practices, not bad practices, and I think this sets a really poor precedent for the future. I believe in the past there's been one alderman who was on the previous alderman who was on the Zoning Commission, and I don't think that was allowed to continue for too long. It's not something we should be starting now. So I would request that appointment be deferred for now and reconsidered. I also want to mention or ask regarding that public hearing next week. I forgot to ask earlier. Board docs is a really great way of communicating and allowing people to see what the city is working on. That public hearing, in order for me to get a copy of the application so I could testify at that public hearing if I were so inclined, that should be on board docs, it seems to me, but it's not. So in order for me to get that, I either have to stop by the city, I guess, and ask for it, or submit a FOIA request really is the way to go about it. There are easier ways to get people that information, and I would request that the city post those documents so that anyone who wants to, can get it without making a special request. Thanks.
And last I have Marilyn Aredo, 912 Sailor. I got it.
I'm Marilyn Aredo. I live at 912 Sailor. Recently, I received a letter from the city of Elmhurst regarding a building sewer inspection program to see if water from my sump pump is entering the sanitary sewer system. In the letter, there was information regarding a phone number and an email to make an appointment for the inspection and a date of an informational meeting on Tuesday, October 29th, 2013 at 7 p.m. at City Hall. At this meeting, which I attended, there were a few residents, 2 employees from the Elmhurst Public Works, and a representative from the RJN Group, the company that would do the inspections. No mayor, no councilmen or councilwomen were present. The 3 conducting the meeting presented as much information as possible. However, they could not answer the question about consequences should a home fail the inspection test. So tonight, I want to know what happens if your home does not pass this inspection. The second issue that I would like to address is the gutter runoff that is directly connected to the storm sewers in the last 10 years from the new home construction. That overflow into the storm sewer has caused overflow into the sanitary sewer, and in some cases into the basements of residents during a rainstorm. Not only does the rainwater of new homes go into the storm sewers, the new basements are 9 feet deep. So this is displacing more water into neighbors' yards or into the streets. I have a 7-foot basement. That was standard just a few years ago. If older homes have to disconnect some pumps going into sanitary sewers, then I feel that homes built within the last 10 years should have their gutters disconnected from storm sewers and their rainwater flow into their yards. It is not a bad thing to have large puddles at the end of your yard in a rainstorm. Within days, puddles evaporate. That happens all the time in my yard. Today's sewers cannot handle the rainstorms that we've experienced the last few years. It is up to you, elected council of our city, to pass ordinances that protect your citizens. The council in 1987-88 was proactive after the August 14, 1987 100-year flood. They began by having a building moratorium for 2 years while they figured out what to do regarding flooding. I know this because my husband and I had plans for a room addition to our home, and it was declined. We were granted a permit 3 years later, and the area of the addition had to be reduced because of flooding. The council also budgeted money to spend money to dredge Salt Creek, build a berm in Eldridge Park, and they passed an ordinance to disconnect some pumps from sanitary sewers. It is my hope that this council will pass some restrictions in the building code of new construction regarding downspouts to flow in yards and not in storm sewers. Thank you.
That's all I have that signed in tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone in the audience at this time who did not have an opportunity to sign up on our sign-in sheet for public forum? Anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay, I see one. Go ahead. Please approach the microphone, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Once again, my name is Noelle Toledo. I represent the League of Women Voters of Elmhurst here. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. It's been around since 1913, dedicated to voter education and registration. I just wanted to alert the public and our City Council to our upcoming November program meeting. It's held at 7 p.m. at the Elmhurst Library. And this month's topic will be presented regarding campaign finance reform and its relationship to the First Amendment. And Miriam Judar, the Executive Director of the Citizen Advocacy Center, will be presenting that. So please join us. It's free to anyone in Elmhurst. So thank you.
Address, Noel?
My address is 153 North Clinton. Thanks.
Thanks.
Anyone else at this time who would like an opportunity to address the City Council? Seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. 5.1, I'm going to ask Mr. Hull to meet me at the podium over here. Bob, good to see you. Set this up. Can I move this? Trying to get this out here. There we go. Thank you. To my right is Bob Hull. I think most of you know Bob. Bob is the chairman of our bike task force. About 5 years ago, at the recommendation of a couple of aldermen, Mayor Marcucci formed then the Elmhurst Bike Task Force. After many years of lobbying by Bob, just the start of us getting to know Bob. And periodically Bob would come to the city and inform city members and committee members how we were doing in our efforts to make Elmhurst a more bike-friendly community. And I would say that tenacious would be a good word to describe Bob. Tenacious yet very respectful. Recently, Elmhurst has been named a bike-friendly city, and we're very proud of that. And I wanted to recognize Bob and give Bob an opportunity to speak and provide some of the details.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize in advance if this sounds like an Academy Award acceptance speech, but I think it's important that I recognize some of the people who helped to make this possible. First of all, there was the foresight of former Mayor Marcucci, who set up the Bike Task Force, as the mayor has indicated. He provided a lot of support, and that was greatly appreciated. I also need to thank the previous council and this council for their ideas, their support, and their stick-to-itiveness to put up with me and my group over the past few years. We had the support of both the city staff, the District 205 staff, and it just never seemed to fail that we would find people who would help us. The task force was made up of all of the major stakeholders of the community: the hospital, the city center, the Chamber of Commerce, the city, the Park District, District 205, as well as 10 resident volunteers. They put a lot of time into what the task force did. I'd also like to thank the Elmhurst Bicycle Club, whose knowledge of the roads around Elmhurst help us build a bikeable streets map. We created more awareness that bikes will be on our streets in Elmhurst through signage that went up around town and general education campaigns. The city installed a lot of additional bike racks throughout the central business district. The school district installed a lot of bike racks to help promote biking. And finally, most recently with this council, the adoption of the bike plan. That was critical. That was the final link that we needed to be qualified to be designated as a bike-friendly community. This designation belongs to we're one of the 8 communities in Illinois to achieve this designation. We are one of 300 communities nationwide to achieve this designation. It's something to be proud of. So on behalf of the Mayor's Bike Task Force, I would like to present to the Mayor and to the City Council our first bike-friendly community sign.
There you go. Thanks again, Bob. Really appreciate it. Okay, agenda item 5.2, announcements. Any announcements this evening? Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Gutenkopf and I are holding a meeting to receive input from First Ward residents on the Han Street final proposals. The meeting will take place on Thursday, November 14th at 7 p.m. at the Elmhurst Public Library in the meeting room on the 2nd floor. Thank you.
Any additional announcements? Okay, on to the consent agenda, agenda item number 6. At this time, is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone on the dais would like to pull and further discuss or add comment? Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 items, please, 6.4 and 6.14.
Okay, item 6.4 and 6.14. Any additional, any other items from the consent agenda that anyone would like to see pulled? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items 6.4 and 6.14. Motion by Alderman Wagner, second by Alderman Bram. Clerk Spencer?
Wagner.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Guggenkoff.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Holumsky.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, that motion carries. On to the first item that was pulled, item 6.4, appointment to the Zoning and Planning Commission of Susan Rose. I have to get a motion for this anyway.
Yeah.
I'll ask for a motion to approve this appointment, to put this before the floor for discussion. I need a motion by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Mulliner. I don't plan on speaking on this unless necessary. I'll go to Alderman Bram. You pulled this. Any concerns or issues? Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of the comments during public forum have already covered some of my concerns, so I won't rehash that due to our very large agenda, not only from a city council perspective, but committee of the whole for the budget discussions afterwards. And not to mention, there's some game about the Bears and the Packers or something a little bit tonight. But my concerns on this appointment is twofold, one of which from the current applicant for this position, what could be perceived, if not reality, conflict of interest. The other point is the current person who is in this commissioner position, Alan Brinkmeyer, has served the community for many years. It is my understanding he wanted to continue to serve in this capacity. The expiration of this appointment was, I believe, 2.5 years ago. Was not filled for many reasons, previous administration, but for many reasons. And even during this past 6 months, requested to serve again and resubmitted his application to continue to be a commissioner. My personal opinions of Alan Brinkmeyer aside, I think that overall he's done a good job, but it's not about what he has done. It's really about the conflict of interest that I perceive for a former elected official in this capacity for this position. Albeit perceived or reality, I'm more concerned about perception of the Zoning Planning Commission to anywhere dabbling in the becoming a political body. The purpose of this body is to be non-political. The purpose of this body is to strictly rule on the facts. And I'm concerned that we are letting go an individual who did reapply, who has served well, and there could be a perception, as already duly noted by people in the public forum, of conflict of interest, and I would hate to go down that path. The last statement is that I haven't heard within the last 2.5 years any requests for further applications for this position, haven't heard anything mention that this was going to be filled in the near term, so I was definitely surprised when seeing it on this week's agenda because there was no announcements of this very stagnant, unfilled commissioner position moving forward. So I cannot support this at this time. And I do want to say that the recusal policy is actually an excellent idea and something that we as a council should consider. Thank you.
Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, this is an appointment that puts me in a very difficult position because I have a great deal of respect for both of these two individuals, and from my perspective, both are very talented, both have a tremendous understanding of the zoning and planning world in the city of Elmhurst, probably two of the most knowledgeable people that we have in Elmhurst that relate to zoning and planning. Having said that, I have a great deal of respect for Alan Brinkmeyer. I think he knows the law as it relates to zoning and planning better than anyone in the city of Elmhurst, other than the attorneys. But he is an attorney, so I'll give him that credit too. But at the same time, I understand that these are appointments that are made by the mayor. I understand that this is a very difficult one for me because I have respect for both people. I think the strongest possible zoning commission that we could have would have both of these individuals on it. Having said that, I believe that we need to move forward with an appointment.
Any additional comments? Alderman Levin.
I don't have a problem of having this appointment go through. I think that to say that being an alderman is a political appointment, it's you're elected in an independent race. There's no reason to believe that Susan Rose wouldn't serve with distinction. And having run against her for mayor, I can say that against a former opponent. It is I think the issue that was raised by the speakers with regard to recusal is nothing new to this body. It's nothing new to what happens, as Chairman Whistler of the Zoning and Planning Commission knows, that if you have a conflict, you recuse yourself. It happens for people on the council. It happens for people on the Zoning Commission. I haven't seen that problem here, and I think that if Susan Rose is approved, she, of all people, will know that there are times when she'll have to recuse herself. As I've said with past mayors, I feel that if our mayors nominate someone, it's their prerogative, unless I feel that that candidate is unqualified or there's a significant problem, then I respect the recommendation of the mayor. It's the mayor's appointment with our consent, and I will give my consent.
Any additional comments? Clerk Spencer, please call the roll.
Levin.
Aye.
Mullener,
Aye.
Wagner,
Aye.
Gutenkopf,
Aye.
Goiter,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Leader,
Aye.
Polumsky,
Aye.
Graham,
No.
Tipskin,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Healy,
Aye.
Conquest,
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
13 ayes, 1 nays.
13 ayes, 1 nay, that motion carries. On to agenda item 6.4. Clerk Spencer, please read the recommendation.
6.14.
I'm sorry, you're right. Correction.
It is
6.14.
It is therefore the Development, Planning, and Zoning Committee recommends that the City Council approve the request for zoning ordinance map and text amendment. The city attorney is hereby directed to prepare the necessary documents for City Council approval. Signed by Scott M. Levin, Chairman Danny Polumsky, Vice Chairman Mark A. Mullener, Alderman, 7th Ward.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion to approve the report as written. Alderman Levin with the motion. Alderman, Polumsky with a second. Alderman Levin, do you want to set this up for us?
I will, thank you, Mayor. This was an application that originally came from the property owner because they wanted to have the property reclassified as industrial. That was denied by the Zoning and Planning Commission. It came before the DPZ for consideration. We spent some time discussing with the applicant some of the unique issues and concerns related to that property. The letterer is the family who developed it. The current family still owns the property, and it was described how that property was built at a time when I believe it was C5 was the classification, which included light industrial and heavy commercial. Sometime back in the early 90s, it was reclassified into its present commercial zone, which prohibited the property owner from using the property in a use as it was originally intended and built. The DPZ, the committee, discussed it and felt that the best solution was to create this overlay that would allow some, not all, of the industrial uses. This property is behind the current Waverton Hotel, which is C. It's across the street from I property. And the city was the applicant under this ordinance, or the subject of this report, to go back to planning and zoning to ask for this map amendment. And it was approved unanimously, came back before the committee, and it would have, obviously, since the committee recommended it, no surprise, it was unanimous. We again feel that this is the best compromise, and it's the best use, and I won't say compromise, it's the best way to own this property to make it useful to the owner and others who might own it in the future.
Additional comments? Alderman Braham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a while since we talked about this, and most of what I'll say tonight I said back then, and I'll try to keep it as brief as at least I possibly can. I believe this is spot zoning. As Alderman Levin correctly stated, the applicant, which it's still an open and current application, submitted for this to be an industrial use. The Zoning and Planning Commission denied that application. I shouldn't say denied. I should say recommended that it should not be an industrial use. Therefore, the city took it upon themselves to propose a text amendment to allow the appropriate uses that that particular applicant requested by doing an overlay district. And the city of Elmhurst is the one who submitted the application. The city of Elmhurst waived, obviously, because it's the city, the $6,500 fee for that application. I don't think it is appropriate for us to what I would consider, and it is my perception, and I'm not an attorney, it is my perception that this is spot zoning. This is for one applicant, even though it encompasses two addresses. The two addresses, the secondary address, and I asked this when we initially discussed this issue, and I still to this day have not gotten the answer. The secondary address has not requested these additional uses. We included them in the application. It's a building that's a property that's for sale, but we included two addresses, one of which was is a part of a current application for these specific uses. So we as the city of Elmhurst decided to create an overlay district. So yes, this was with a limited zoning and planning commission attendance that night, was unanimously approved to move forward, or recommended, I should say. And the committee did unanimously also agree for this overlay district. I think it's inappropriate for us to be the petitioner in this case. I think it's inappropriate for us, even though it may or may not be able to be proved in a court of law, to what I would consider at least be spot zoning. We are fulfilling a request by one particular applicant, and I cannot agree to that. The city of Elmhurst should not be submitting a request for one particular applicant, and I feel that's what we're doing here tonight. So with that, I hope that over these many months that my fellow colleagues have thought about this long and hard and possibly reconsidered that, because I don't think that this is an appropriate direction for us to go. I was asked about, there hasn't been any objections to this by residents or business owners. I will say, during the initial application, there were people who came and objected to the industrial use in these two properties. They didn't come for the text amendment. Maybe they were bored, maybe they thought it was a done deal, maybe they were busy that night, I don't know. But the initial application for these two properties to be industrial use, people did come out to object to it. So we talk about doing what's right for the citizens, we're talking doing what's right for the businesses. I don't think this is what we should be doing. I don't think this is right. Thank you.
Alderman Polomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to point out some information that the committee considered once this changed from a map amendment to being sent to the commission as a text amendment, and that is the third bullet point down in staff report under factors. It says, the 2009 Elmhurst Comprehensive Plan, which replaced the 1990 Comprehensive Plan, designates the subject properties, and that's the two properties next to each other, as business park. So we have documentation, we have a suggestion that this area is for business use, and I don't see how adding some uses in these two properties will inhibit any growth or change the direction that we're moving in. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
Levin.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Dwighter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
12 ayes, 2 nays.
12 ayes, 2 nays. That motion carries. On to committee reports. 7.1, Marketing Communications Coordinator out of DP&Z. Clerk Spencer, could you please read the recommendation?
It is therefore the recommendation of the Development, Planning, and Zoning Committee that the City Council provides funding in the 2014 budget and allows authority for the city manager to hire a full-time marketing and communications coordinator. Signed by Scott M. Levin, Chairman, Danny Polumsky, Vice Chairman, Mark A. Mulliner, Alderman, 7th Ward.
Okay, I'd ask for a motion to approve. Alderman Levin, and a second. Alderman Polumsky. Alderman Levin, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a request to be considered that was brought to us by the city manager, and it was a request that takes into consideration staffing needs for functions within the city government. Essentially, there is a retirement in the visitor and tourism. There's elimination of a administrative staff person and another half-time, I think, contractual staff. And so the net change really is about a half a full-time equivalent. Over the past year or more, there has been a lot of discussion about the need for improved marketing and for improved communications within the city. And the city manager has given this consideration and came up with the idea for this marketing and communications coordinator. I know that in the committee, Alderman Bram and Alderman Gutenkopf expressed their concern with coordination and how work with Feinzoll was tied into what the other consultants, the real estate consultants were doing, and internal city staff and economic development. The intent of this position is, I would liken it to somewhat a public information officer, much like what School District 205 has, someone who can get the communications out and help us get our message out to the community. And I will say, as an aside on this, when we had the last major flooding event in April of this year, Mayor Morley and I were at the, what do we call it, the command center, and we noted after his election, we met with city staff about the need to have some of these communication protocols developed to better get the word out, and I think we did some things differently, but there's a better need to do that, or a need to do that better, and that's one of the functions. As things happen in the city, whether they're emergency or not, there's a public information officer function. There's a need to coordinate between what the museum is doing, what the economic development's doing. So this position seems to make sense, particularly in an environment where we need to compete to attract, to make our municipality more attractive and to sell the good things of what we're doing here in our community. I know there have been comments about watching the budget, and I think that people are not mindful of the fact that over the last 3 years, I think we've had no real tax increases, and we've gone with a negative 1% in the last year. So I do give the city manager credit for watching those tax dollars and keeping us in budget, and there are decreases that in certain budgets, and this is a reallocation of resources, in my opinion, and I urge you to support it.
Additional comments? Alderman Polomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our marketing approach has evolved into a complex system. We can't fully redirect it with one vote, but we can recognize that this role allows us to take on critical initiatives. As Chairman Levin mentioned, this individual would function as the public information officer and is one positive step towards a streamlined marketing effort. This position will greatly enhance the city's ability to communicate with residents and organizations, allow for an innovative approach to visitor and tourism, and assist existing and prospective businesses and indirectly benefit taxpayers, including those projects with big price tags that require funding. Additionally, one concern that I've been hearing about lately is why the city doesn't do anything about the types of businesses coming in, and why do we have so many of one type of business that yet we're lacking others. And I'm certain that with a better understanding of what will enhance our business mix and the ability to devote resources to business attraction and recruitment, we will all benefit from a more vibrant Elmhurst. Also some of the responsibilities that are maintained by consultants will immediately be transferred to the individual taking on this role, such as a web-based presence, including Explore Elmhurst, and also serving as liaison to the Chamber and to City Center. So while we're, as far as working with the consultants, I see this as one step in the right direction, and I would encourage everybody to support this, because I think this is something that we see as necessary not only for communication but for the growth of our community. Thanks.
Additional comments? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that as a city, we've really evolved and that we spend a lot of time trying to get information out to residents, and we don't always have the most cohesive approach. I think having a staff person who oversees that, who is providing consistency with messaging, who is clear and articulate, and is able to make sure that we have communication plans both internally and with residents and with businesses is a great idea. I think it's something that we've talked around for a while, and I'm happy to see us taking some steps to move forward to coordinate these pieces. I am a little, I still have some questions sort of about how all of this works and how this is going to work with the ongoing consultants that we have. I hope the city manager will be able to answer some of my questions tonight. Because I've looked at the chart that one of the residents mentioned during public comment that shows the interrelationships between the 3 consulting positions and this new staff position. The chart also specifically indicates some responsibilities that will now no longer be covered by one of the consultants and will be transferred to the new in-house position, giving us, I'm assuming, greater control. One of the things that I have not yet been able to get a handle on is how does this change our relationship with the economic development consultant, and how does that change our overall budgeting strategy with that? Some of the conversation about this new position came about because we as council members wanted to understand all of these positions, how they relate together. The Development Planning and Zoning Committee had meetings with the consultants who presented their sort of strategy and plans to the committee. I attended one of the meetings where the economic development consultant made a presentation. I was less than impressed. I should say I was underwhelmed by their level of professionalism and by their ability to clearly communicate what it is they do for us. Tonight on the dais, there's a spreadsheet that indicates proposed amounts of hours for each of the consultants, total contract dollars, and allocations for those hours over different parts of the city government. It appears to me that we have not reduced the amount of hours for any of the consultants with whom we've contracted, and we are adding this position. So hidden in all of that background is really a question that says, you know, what steps are we taking to reduce our reliance on consultants, some of which I believe is the underlying impetus for this position, what some of us as council members were intending would happen if we move forward with this position. So I'd like to know, you know, how that's going to happen. The Bartels and Feinzoll contracts or sort of descriptions of their responsibilities seem duplicative in many levels, since there's an awful lot of comments about business retention developments that appears in both of these, and I'd like some response to that about how do we keep them from being duplicative, how do we define who does what, and this marketing and communications position seems huge. I mean, there seems to be an awful lot wrapped up in that, so that would help me if I could hear the overall summary of what that job description is supposed to be, and you know, what the responsibilities for that position are supposed to cover. And then in the end, I'd like to know what the dollar figure is going to be. What's, you know, what are we looking at in the budget? We're reducing one part-time position, but yet we're adding this full-time position. Alderman Levin indicated it was a, you know, 0.5 FTE, half of a full-time position, but what does that equate to in dollars that we're now going to be expending that we weren't before?
City Manager Grabowski, you want to flesh out some of the ideas and questions that Alderman Gutenkopf had?
Yes, I took 3 or 4 questions from that, so I'm hoping that I'll hit them all. If not, please remind me what they are. First, I'd like to go back in history just a little bit. that the way that the city approached economic development, marketing, communications changed approximately 4 or 5 years ago when the economic development, perhaps even more than that, when the economic development department was removed from the budget. And instead, and at less cost, a team of consultants were brought in that provided economic development and some marketing services. We've examined it every year since then. And most recently, a referral was sent to the council to, again, reevaluate our marketing efforts. And so that led to essentially the table that you had pointed out that has the consultants in this new position on it, among some other reports that were sent to the DPZ committee. What we found in examining those efforts was that the Fines-All group, which I believe is the group that you're referring to, could be better utilized. Rather than addressing some of the tasks that she has been, such as answering phone calls, returning emails, those type of things, her efforts, her talents can be better utilized. So to answer the first question about reduction of hours, we anticipate reallocating her efforts towards other marketing efforts on behalf of the city, and as Alderman Polomsky had said, more towards recruitment of businesses to town. The other portion of that, of course, was the communications portion. As Chairman Levin stated, a lot of that came from looking at our emergency situations where we need to get communications out in a more timely manner and make a better effort towards that. So that's a portion of it. The remainder is to get information out on a daily basis, a weekly basis, as our counterparts at the school district do, the park district, the college, all of that. So those were the primary goals to hit with this new position. Regarding the budget, what we have in the budget is we've budgeted $75,000 for this position, and it's split between the general fund in administration with 70% of it and 30% of it in the sewer and water administration budgets. There remains in the budget an additional $28,000 for the visitor and tourism salary because we anticipate this will take some time to recruit. And as Chairman Levin stated, the person that currently is in that position plans to retire, but she indicated that she would stay with us until this new person is brought on and kind of caught up to speed on what the visitor and tourism job responsibilities have been. Regarding everything together in the job description, it's really going to depend on what this person brings to the table. Obviously, as you recruit and you interview different people, everyone has different skill sets. So a lot of this, we plan for all of this to be addressed in the job description. Now, what that person's strengths are and how they approach it is to be seen.
Without additional comment, follow up to any questions that you had? Otherwise, I'll go ahead.
I'm still not clear how the Bartels, Fines-All, and new position are not duplicative. I think that was a piece of my original question.
I don't believe that the Fines-All description and duties will be duplicative. As we indicated on the chart, she has a skill level right now that needs an experience that needs to be transmitted to the new marketing and communications position. So once that new person is on board, they'll be able to work with Fines-All and eventually transfer those duties to the new person away from Fines-All, which again would allow her to, Kathy, to work on other projects, better utilize her skills. With the Bartels contract, what we found is that in the communications portion of his contract, which on the table that was at the dais tonight, is under the administration portion is $5,000. And so what we found is that we've not really used that portion of his contract significantly, and that portion that we did use was for very specialized communications, such as the cable programs that are produced. And we anticipate right now that he would continue to do those for the city.
I'm sorry, I have a follow-up. I just want to make sure I understand that. That we have not been using that, but yet it's in the budget? Or are you saying you've broken out his time differently to account for that communications? I didn't understand what you meant.
We have not used the amount of time that was in his contract. We've not fully utilized the hours that were allocated in the contract. We just haven't utilized them on a day-to-day basis for information, and it's been more specialized type communications that he's put together.
So it's staying in the budget because you're still anticipating using that specialized communications to this dollar level?
Correct.
Okay.
Alderman Palomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that it's safe to say the committee has not decided a direction on how the consultants will be heading once some additional responsibilities will be transferred over to this new role. It's possible that once we see how this all works together, and maybe even as a result of market conditions, or even as a result of some initiatives, if we have a new draw or a new buzz in Elmhurst, maybe there will be different needs for marketing, and maybe there's a desire to continue with the consultants, or maybe there's a desire not to, or even maybe to go out for RFP. So the committee's not decided at this point. Thank you.
Alderman Healy, then I'll go to Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mayor. I personally am very happy to see this position in the budget. I think it's long overdue. I've had a couple of conversations with City Manager Grabowski, Assistant City Manager Kopp, Mayor Morley. I look at it a little bit differently. I have some of the concerns that have been voiced about the exact whats and whys and wheres, but I'm very confident that between city staff and whether it's the DPZ committee or finance committee, that the questions will be answered, and they'll be answered to our satisfaction. I look at this as moving the city forward with our ability to communicate with our residents. These days, our residents demand instantaneous communication. We've come to expect that. We expect answers now. We expect them on our phones now. If there's a problem in my area, I want to know right now. I don't want to wait till tomorrow. I don't want to wait till the next day. It's my hope that this position can start to address some of the changing ways in which people communicate. When you think about the ways that the city of Elmhurst communicates with our residents, we tell them go to the website, hoping it's up. In a storm, what have you, the server's down, the website's down. Deputy Clerk Vanderwall does a phenomenal job. She's got a full-time job, and oh, by the way, can you get some communication out when things are going bad? The storm's already been mentioned about people run around with their hair on fire when things are going bad, and then try to expect somebody to communicate on top of that. I think it's, honestly, and this is no shot at anybody, I just don't think we've done that as well as we could have, because people are doing their other jobs. This person's going to be dedicated to communication. It's my hope that when staff hires this person, that they're going to be an expert in communication. The way we communicate these days is just different, and it's going to keep getting different. And if we're not out in front of that, we're going to get further behind, so that whether it's a storm event, we're more on top of it with the way we communicate with the media. We can improve upon that to let them help us get the word out. There was a situation several months ago in the 5th Ward and in the 7th Ward where there was a police situation. And it scared a lot of people, because we had officers going up and down and all around, and fortunately the situation resolved itself. But I know Alderman Levin, I would assume that Alderman Wagner and Alderman Mulliner probably got calls too, saying, what is going on? Well, talking to the staff afterwards, it became apparent. What could we have done differently? Are you going to ask the commander on the scene to take time out of addressing the situation to address the media? No. Are we going to ask patrolmen that are doing what they're supposed to be doing? That's not realistic. Those people are doing what we pay them to do. Now, moving forward, would it be realistic to ask a commander or a deputy chief or the chief to put in a phone call to the communications person and say, hey, we got a problem down here, you might want to get something out, and let that person do the follow-up? I think that's a realistic expectation. That's not going to happen now. And it won't happen until we have somebody on staff that's 100% focused on communication. So for those reasons, and let's face it, it's 2013. 10 years from now, the way we communicate is going to be different than now. Do we have somebody on staff that really is going to stay on top of that? Now we will. So for those reasons, I commend staff for bringing this up, for pulling the trigger and putting in the budget, and I wholeheartedly support the position.
Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Healy's comments, I agree with the actual final destination. The city of Elmhurst has improved upon communication over the years, as well as, I guess, marketing to a certain extent. But we definitely do have room for improvement, and we need to find a way to get there. The problem is, I don't agree with the path to get to that destination. I don't know if there really is a need of creating this specific position without further reducing, and I do understand the half a full-time position reduction, but further reducing what we have before us today. I'm not going to mention who the consultants are, because in this discussion I think it's irrelevant. What this report is showing me is that the city believes that there is a need for an economic development consultant. We believe that there's a continued need for a real estate consultant. We believe there's a continued need for the relations and development consultant. We don't believe there's a need for visitors and tourism position, but we do believe that there's a need for marketing and communications position. Well, I'll tell you that most of these tasks, if not all of the tasks that are labeled for marketing and communications position, it is my belief, and it actually has been stated by previous administrations, that the hiring of the various consultants that I just rattled off, the economic development consultant, the public relations and development consultant, public relations, that kind of sounds like communication to me, and real estate consultant, those positions were meant to handle the tasks that are there today. If those positions aren't satisfying our need, I think we should take a closer look at those positions and determine maybe we should expand those current positions, or maybe we should change who's in those positions. I don't have the answer. I thought we were going to actually get that answer by Alderman Plumsky and Alderman York's referral, which was referenced in the meeting minutes that this was derived from it, but I never saw a report in regards to that referral on what was needed. So I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. We're saying these are the positions, and we actually put the names of the individuals who should continue to be in those positions, which I don't know if I agree with that. We need to add that position, but I was told years ago that those consultants, the reason for the assistant city manager position was for economic development, which would encompass some of this, and I believe communication would also be ACM as well as city manager. So the positions that are listed on here should already cover this. So should we lower the bar and say, well, we're not doing a good enough job, so let's add a position? To me, that's bloating government. And a resident came to the mic today in public comment saying on how they are concerned over that. I think, I haven't seen this study. I don't know if we're considering this referral closed. If so, I haven't seen it come to the dais. It was mentioned in the meeting minutes that this was derived from this mysterious study, but I haven't seen that. The destination I agree wholeheartedly with, but I think, again, we're putting the cart before the horse. We're taking the wrong path there, or maybe I should say we might be taking the wrong path because I don't have the study before me that we were told would be presented before we make any of these critical decisions to make that actual honest data backing judgment. So even though I agree with the destination, I can't agree with this because I don't have any data to back it up other than these are the bullet points, and I'm a little bit concerned with 3 consultants who are paid hourly talking to one another because that's pretty much tripling our cost all in one little short conversation. And I assume that everybody's reporting to the assistant city manager. But to summarize, I can't support this. I agree with the destination. We do need to do better, but maybe we have the appropriate staff to do better. I just don't have any data to prove one way or another. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Clerk Spencer, please call the roll.
Levin.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Graham.
Nope.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Goiter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
13 ayes, 1 nays.
13 ayes, 1 nay. That motion carries. Report 7.1. Committee report 7.2, Assistant Planning and Zoning Administrator position. Clerk Spencer, please read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Development Planning and Zoning Committee that the City Council provide funding in the 2014 budget and allows authority for the city manager to hire a full-time assistant planning and zoning administrator. Signed by Scott M. Levin, Chairman, Danny Palumski, Vice Chairman, Mark A. Mulliner, Alderman, 7th Ward.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the report. Alderman Levin with a motion, Alderman Palumski with a second. Alderman Levin, you want to set the table for us?
Thank you, Mayor. As noted in the report, currently our zoning and planning staff consists of one person, Dan Werner, our director. So when the recession rolled around, we had, and it says in the report one staff, but my recollection is we had a couple people. In any event, the staff, those staff positions were eliminated. What we're seeing right now is that there are increased demands upon zoning and planning. I think we had a statistic back early in the year. We already had 100 new housing starts, so we have demands for many new projects coming online. We're asking our Mr. Werner to staff up on new projects such as Hahn Street, the Addison Street Garage, which are starting to heat up. We've got the sign hearings coming up. We have a number of different things coming along, and this position is, I would regard as a junior position to go out and to get out in the community and do some of the inspections and take care of some of the tasks that would really be a true assistant to our current administrator. It's a matter, when we had it, when we didn't need it, we cut it back. The need appears to be here again, and from those of us who work most closely with Mr. Werner, we think that we need more capacity in this area.
Additional comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
Levin.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Goiter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. That motion passes. On to agenda item number 8, 8.1, reports and recommendations. I'll make mine quick tonight, as we do have a budget discussion after this. I had the opportunity to attend the Heritage Foundation Gala last Saturday night. It was a fantastic event hosted by the Heritage Foundation and their new president, Kathy Jordan. They're well on their way to meeting their $250,000 goal, and it was a good night for all. Great support for Elmhurst. Two other announcements or reports. One is Elmhurst Memorial Healthcare is opening up their cancer center this Wednesday, the 6th, 7:30 in the morning. All are invited to attend. And then a reminder, next week is Veterans Day. Next Monday is. So we will not be holding our city council meeting on that day. We will be having a meeting on the 12th, which is a Tuesday, committee, right? Committee meetings first, and then our two finalists for the Hahn Street will be making their presentations at that time. City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. Just one item, and it's related to the Hahn Street project. Materials for that project were delivered today from the two developers and are at your positions tonight. The financial submittals are being analyzed by the city's consultant, Kane McKenna, and will be distributed to the council later this week. Each developer, though, has expressed concern with publicly sharing the information prior to the presentations on November 12th. And so I would ask that as a professional courtesy, you not share the packets until after the 12th. Following the presentations, the city will post the information on board docs for viewing.
Very good. Any additional reports from any elected officials? Alderman Braham.
Yes, I just wanted to take this opportunity to try to respond to some of the items that were discussed in public forum really quickly. It was mentioned about when we were reviewing the budget about not knowing the previous year budget items. In the budget document, we do have not only last year but the previous year, so we do know for every single line item. For the parking garage, it was mentioned that we're not sure on what we're submitting to Zoning Planning Commission. That is not true, at least to my understanding, that we are moving forward with the 65 feet and the associated variances for that. It was mentioned direct connects the downspouts and sump pump to the city sewer. Currently that is allowed, but there was a referral by myself and other aldermen to possibly have a moratorium on that, so that will also be discussed. There's a couple other items that I think I missed, but I want to at least attempt to answer some of them. Thank you.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Well, I'd like to address at least one of them. A resident adds questions about the smoke testing in southwest Elmhurst and whether or not there'd be consequences. I want to remind residents that this is a fact-finding mission. We're attempting to assess the extent of the problem, and once we've got that established, we'll be able to discuss as a committee how we're going to address this. So at this point, anyone who's received a letter requesting access to determine whether or not they've got connections to the sanitary sewer from either storm sump pumps in their basement or footing drains or downspouts, please remember that this is an attempt by the city to assess the extent of the problem and not to impose any kind of consequences because of it. Once we've really got a sense of how widespread these connections are, we'll have much better information upon which we can start to draw policy, make policy decisions and come up with action plans.
Any other reports or recommendations? Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to highlight one item that was on the consent agenda. There was a change order on the Southwest Elmhurst Wet Weather Change Control Facility. The engineers on that project found a savings of $48,000 on that effort, so that's a savings to the community, and that will be beneficial in another way in that it'll be one disruption to the residents on Sailor so that we won't be going into that area twice to do trenching just one time. So thank you to that engineering group and city staff for identifying that savings. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other reports, I will we'll move on to other business. Any other business? Ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman York, Alderman Deuter, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned. We'll give city staff 5 minutes to get set up. We'll take a break before we go committee of the whole for the budget.